Merry Christmas, everybody. I was reading this book and I stumbled upon this passage about Christmas that I couldn't help but share. It's from Mysticism, Magic, and Monasteries. It's by Sebastian Morello. Crazy book. Let me read this to you. At Christmas, children the world over receive gifts from a flying saint dressed in a bright red outfit, who is pulled across the earth 100 feet above its surface by a small herd of reindeer. This Utah god of the north was first likely seen by the ancestors of the Sami. The peoples of Lapland used to feed red mushrooms with white spots, that is, the flyageric mushroom, to their reindeer and then drink the urine. All the psychoactive properties of those toadstools were still in the urine without any of the dangerous toxicity which had been neutralized by the reindeer's kidneys. After those rounds of cervine excretion, the Laplanders saw reindeer flying around them, dragging a man dressed as a flyageric mushroom. And these visions disclosed to them something of the world's inner meaning. They peered into a realm where divinized spirits constantly interact with the natural world, transforming it, guiding the lives of lesser beings, and causing creation to glorify its creator in a chorus of incalculable voices. That same world, however, is also racked and frustrated by sin, darkness, and suffering, and this truth presents to the theocentric mind the most menacing challenge to its vision. And yet it is to this point that the Christmas story is the greatest possible answer. The whole universe, down to the tiniest particle, is afflicted by sin. Sin is creation's failure to glorify the Creator, its failure to speak the divine language, a failure, according to the Christian account, that we wove into the cosmos with the fabric of our pride. In the Christmas story, this is where it gets interesting. In the Christmas story, God, beholding his creations in darkening, commissioned one of the innumerable angelic spirits that are operating everywhere and at all times. And God sent that living force to a part of his creation that he, in a fit of heavenly insanity, had plucked up from the mire of the earth. At the very moment of its inception, he had elevated that speck of the universe above all hate and envy and guile, and thus above all death. That is, God chose an imperceptible fragment of his creation, which was also creation's perfection, and from all eternity he called it by the name of Mary. Thereafter all generations would call her blessed, as it says in the Gospel of Luke. From that maiden, hidden in obscurity, the inner language of the Godhead, the eternal Word itself, from which all existence derives its intelligibility, drew the whole cosmos back into itself in a moment of embodiment, both celestial and terrestrial. The whole cosmos was concentrated and completed in one young lady, and from her the eternal Word itself, pouring forth from the amorous communion of the Godhead, drew created nature. By so doing, the Incarnation burst into creation like a lightning bolt flashing across a midnight landscape. No artist has captured this better than Tintoretto with his Annunciation of 1587. Pictured here, quite nice, in which, as the Archangel Gabriel appears before Mary, all the darkness, decay, and devastation of a world haunted by disobedience and self-destruction is flooded with divine love. 9 months later, magicians, conjurers of the hidden language who could read the symbolic universe, deciphered the grammar of the stars, and they meditated upon visitations experienced when wandering in the dream world. Those enigmatic men walked in piety across the dunes, obedient to the language of creation and the spirits that animate and recreate it at every moment. And at the end of their pilgrimage, they met the center of history as he lay there in a trough, whimpering and shivering amid stinking livestock, under the protection of the cosmic Magna Mater. Those royal magicians of the Eastern mysteries knew what they beheld because they understood the theophany of the universe, that cosmic icon that conveyed to them the mystery that now struggled incarnate within their gaze. And they responded with symbols, frankincense, gold, and myrrh, which they lay before their vulnerable and helpless Creator. Late modernity is a kind of hex on the human mind, and it has produced a people who can no longer read, let alone speak, the divine communication. When modernity split the world into the res cogitans and the res extensa, the inner world of meaning and the external world of atoms, in one sweep it silenced the divine language, or rather it blocked up our senses. For us, the world stopped speaking and became lifeless stuff. First, the sacred places lost their sanctity, for the only sacrality was deemed that of the inner man. The grottos, the holy wells, and the sanctuaries became neglected. A concrete warehouse was judged as good a church as a Gothic masterpiece, for ultimately they were just both heaps of atoms. What mattered, it was thought, was holy feelings, not holy places. The whole world was eventually emptied of its holiness, and one day we looked up and surveyed the panorama, and all we could see was stuff. And all that stuff was gray. Never mind, we thought, and we turned inward to take refuge in the holiness of the inner self, but to our horror and ongoing despair, we discovered that nothing was there. Our ancestors saw beyond that which is only disclosed to the body's eyes. The land was once covered in glades and groves consecrated by the rituals of holy men and women, and powerful spirits delighted in dwelling in those places so pleasing to God. Those sacred hollows are now under motorways and car parks, and everything has become stuff. Now we think that fairy parties at mushroom rings and flying reindeer carrying saints are things out of which eventually we must grow up, when in fact they belong to the realm inhabited only by those who are mature enough to understand the world for what it is. One great cathedral in which 1 billion cosmic liturgies are celebrated. There, in the nave of creation, the ultimate imperative is to join our voices to the anthems of praise. That world is still there. We have only to let the scales fall from our eyes. There is a black spell on the human mind, that much is clear. But fear not, it can be broken by the magic of Christmas. God bless you all. Have yourself a merry little Christmas. Bloody-do-do-do.